One of the main advantages of using a target camera is that the horizon line will always remain level as long as the camera and its target are more or less level. So we can see that better, let's make the grid larger in the perspective view and the camera view. Right-click on any one of the snaps icons and go to the home grid, and I'm going to set the perspective view grid extent to 500. Press enter. That'll extend the grid out farther. Additionally, you can make the horizon line visible in a camera view. Just select the camera, go into the Modify panel, and you'll see Show Horizon, and that's really helpful. If you move that camera or its target around, the horizon line will always stay level. It's hardwired to do that. However, the downside of that is that if you need to make the camera look straight up or straight down, the behavior of a target camera is going to be a bit weird. We can see that here in the perspective view. If I move that camera so that it's looking straight down, it's starting to swivel around and do strange things, especially if it's directly over the target. You can see that here. It's actually going to cause the camera to flip upside down. And so that's the downside of using the target camera. If you're doing an animated shot, or if you need the camera to look straight up or straight down, then you probably want to use the other type of camera, which is a free camera. Let's take a look at that. Go to the Create panel and go to Cameras, Free. Now, conventionally, most people would create the free camera in the front viewport. But I'm going to show you a better way to do it. Here's the issue with creating it in the front view. If we try to rotate the camera using a third-person method, then we're going to have problems. And it actually doesn't matter which coordinate system we choose. We could choose world or local or really any coordinate system, and we're going to have some issues here. So let's load that camera into this viewport. I can highlight that camera and press the C key, and then I can choose which camera I want. Now we're looking through camera 2, or the free cameras view. And if I rotate the camera around, you will see that we get the horizon line tilted. So I didn't even do anything special. I just rotated a couple of times and immediately things went wacky. I can try to restore this by setting the Y and Z axes back to 0. And then try again. You can see that, again, even if I just tilt up or down a little bit and then try to pan or rotate, then the horizon line's not going to be level almost immediately. This is using a world coordinate system. Let me undo those rotations. And also, let's try the local coordinate system. We're actually going to experience the same issue. If we tilt down, then when we try to pan, immediately the horizon line's not level anymore. Control Z to undo those. Even if we go into the best possible coordinate system, which is gimbal, we're still going to have the issue in which the horizon line will not remain level under certain conditions. So it's being kind of cooperative right now, but if you just tilt along the line of sight a little bit, you can see that, that's what's known as a Dutch tilt or a canted angle, and that will often occur without you even trying. It'll happen sort of by itself. So I'm going to show you how to prevent it from ever happening so that you can control the rotations of a free camera using this third-person method. I'm going to delete that one and create a new one, but this time I'm going to create it in the perspective view. And when I do that, it'll actually be faced downward, as you can see. And then we can load that into the panel here. You can click over here on the name and choose Cameras, Camera 2. And in order to get the best results from a free camera, you want to be in gimbal mode, but additionally you want to change the rotation order. As we saw with the hierarchy, rotation order is important when trying to control the rotations of an object. So let's go into the motion panel and choose rotation, and you'll see the axis order here. The one that we want is actually the last one in the list here, ZXZ. And that seems a bit odd that Z is listed twice. In fact, what this really is YXZ with the Y-axis rotated 90 degrees so that it's coincident with Z. So when I choose ZXZ, it looks like I only have 2 axes here. But as soon as I click on this circle here and rotate it, now we can see all 3 axes. And this is actually the optimal rotation order for a camera. Because if you remember from the hierarchy chapter, there's a priority to these rotations. And what we want for a camera is we want the Z-axis which is the pan axis, to have the highest priority. Let's move this up a little bit. So we want Z to have highest priority, and that's why Z is listed last here. And then we want the next highest priority to be X, and then the least important to be Y, which is the tilt along the line of sight, or the Dutch tilt or canted angle. So let's hit Control Z to undo that. This is the optimal scenario for a free camera. So again, choose ZXZ and use gimbal mode and just tilt the camera back up manually. And you should have no problems, actually. It should never go into a Dutch tilt or a canted angle unless you intentionally make it happen. Additionally, by the way, you can always use the interactive controls. So if you just select that camera viewport and then choose the pan camera tool, you can pan left to right and tilt up down. And if you hold the shift key down, you can constrain. So if I hold down shift, I'm just constraining to pan. Or if I hold down shift, I can constrain to tilt. So that's another way to help ensure that you don't have an accidental Dutch tilt, and so that you don't have issues with rotations. It's a common problem with camera rotations that an animator will create some animation keyframes, and then the camera will spin out of control and do crazy things. But if you set the rotation axis order to ZXZ and always rotate in gimbal mode, then you're only rotating in one axis at any one time, and you won't experience issues with the camera spinning out of control. So that's a basic introduction to using a free camera, and that concludes our chapter on layout and camera basics.